Alright, Spino. This is going to be a response to your video. I appreciate the video response. I like that sort of engagement, even though, you know, nothing you say is true, and I'm right and you're wrong. Even though I'm right and you're wrong, I still appreciate the video response. Now, I will admit I stopped watching some of it because, you know, if you want to talk about other things, we could, but right now, the other topic wasn't Israel-Palestine, and that's just not what we were discussing. So let's stay on topic for now. And if you want to engage in some other debate, we can do that. But for now, one thing at a time. I took some notes here to remember kind of some basic things I wanted to say. To start off, you're making certain connections, which I'm not saying that they're not possible in being true, but you say them as if they're self-evident and obviously true. And that's one part where you're definitely wrong. Now, you might be able to somehow prove, or we might debate sort of based on sort of surveying people, or we can find some studies, right, that might back up our positions. But one thing that's definitely not true is that certain things that you think are so obviously self-evident, such as having more options equating to happiness. That's not true. In fact, there are many studies, even if we separate ourselves from this specific issue about women and if they're happier now, just people in general, choice overload, right? There's plenty of studies on that. So having options does not, it sometimes can lead to happiness, sometimes not. Now we can debate, right? In individual circumstances or with individual people, who enjoys it, who doesn't, when does it work out, when does it not? But just the idea that it's so obvious. More options, more freedom, right? I mean, come on, you're not a conservative, Spino. You don't believe that freedom is always a good thing. But really, right, you believe in regulations, other things like that. So just more freedom, more options, more ability to do things, right? Some people do things that aren't in their best interest. Some people are given choices, right? Freedom to do heroin might not be a good thing. Freedom for companies to pollute the water, right? Now, these aren't perfect analogies, but the point is the fact that women now have more freedom, right? You know, and to put it in a very sort of simplified way, barefoot in the kitchen, or, you know, shuffle products for Amazon or whatever, right? You can kind of start getting the gist that how, at least you can imagine, right? How having more freedom in a very sort of surface level way might not lead to happiness. There actually might be more freedom in being able to be a mom, to stay at home. There might be more freedom in kind of having more ability to do what you want with your day, rather than working 50, 60 hours a week, which is what a lot of women are doing now, right? That doesn't necessarily make them happy. So there's that. Okay, so now addressing the sort of being elected president, that women can now be president, that'd be so far down the list in what most women prioritize, is whether they can be elected president. And I know you probably know that, I would think you do, but yeah, I mean, there's meaning and purpose, healthy relationships, a sense of community, feeling like they're doing as well as their neighbors, right? People compare themselves to other people, right? And we can go on and on and on, but can I be the next president? I'm not saying that women shouldn't be able to be, but to sort of equate that with happiness, not true. And just to kind of, while we're on that subject, you know, just Google, are women happier now, right? Now, is this concrete proof? Am I preparing, do I have the data points right now? You know, you can look it up yourself and make your own conclusions. Of course, either one of us will be looking for data that backs up the position we're trying to defend. But at the very least, we can say it's not without controversy. It's not just so clear. Women in general are not reporting, as time goes on, increased levels of happiness. Now, I'm not sure which studies we have and where we can compare it, but there does seem to be, over time, an increase in women being anxious, depressed, and so on. As far as you accusing me of semantic games, I would say that you're the one who's playing semantic games. When I'm saying the thing about what makes them happy or not, and you're saying, well, every woman doesn't want to be barefoot in the kitchen. You're doing more of the semantics game, because I'm not saying that every woman wants that. I'm saying that more women, maybe even most women, would like to not be able to work, okay? And you can say what you want about sort of traditional values, blah, blah, blah. I can just tell you based on life experience, talking to many women, it doesn't matter if they're liberal or conservative, most women, okay, if given the opportunity to shack up with a giga Chad who's gonna pay their bills, they will gladly be barefoot in the kitchen, okay? So this idea, this sort of like, you've kind of bought into this sort of thing, this, oh, barefoot in the kitchen, oh, what a nightmare. You know, women want their work boots on and they want to be a slave to corporate America. You know, women don't want to be barefoot in the kitchen. They want to work as baristas their whole lives. And so some of this, though, you know, we might have some overlap in agreement when it comes to sort of, you know, you talked about sort of where I stand when it comes to sort of fiscal policy, whatever. And part of why I don't want to get into that is because I mostly, or not, I don't know if I mostly, but I generally don't have a big sort of problem with that. I'm not fiscal conservative in general. And so it's not really something we need to get into that much because we don't necessarily have a big disagreement there. I'm sure on certain individual issues we would have varying opinions, but I'm not sort of a like taxation is theft kind of guy, or I'm not against universal health care. I want people to not have to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week to sustain themselves, and on and on. So we'd have a lot of agreement there. And who wants to talk about things we agree on? Come on, that'd be silly. So yeah, and then you talked about the feminist movement. It's not so clear that the feminist movement represents the majority of women. And also there's different feminist movements, right? And so there's people who agree with sort of the old school feminism, who don't agree with third, fourth wave, whatever they're calling it now, feminism, right? So just, yeah, women aren't a monolith. Not only are there plenty of conservative women, there's plenty of liberal women who have varying opinions on which brand of feminism they would subscribe to, right? So, yeah. So the point of that really comes down to what's my argument here? I'm not trying to say that this is not really in defense of conservative fiscal policies or sort of extreme versions of gender roles necessarily, but it is to say that it is not so obvious that women are happier being single, having a bunch of cats. I know it's going to trigger people, but the sort of stereotype of I'm independent and I don't want kids. It's not so clear that those people are generally happier than women who have stable, loving relationships and they're supported financially and so on. All this being said, I'm not someone who's advocating some sort of crazy policies of, yeah, let's not allow, women should not be allowed in the workplace or any of that stuff. I mean, I never said anything. I mean, I might say stuff like that joking, but I never in any of these videos have actually said any far right kind of things like that, like don't allow women to work or whatever. But I am saying that it is very far from obvious that women are happier, right? That women are happier being a slave to their job, right, than being in a loving marriage. Not all marriages are loving. We know that. Sure, not every job is miserable. Some people love their jobs. But we're talking about sort of trends and general things. And I can say, one, you can look up studies about women's happiness, right? And I think that they're going to more back up what I'm saying. But even beyond that, I have talked to countless women in various contexts about their experiences. And most aren't in love with their work. Most, doesn't even matter, left or right. They would be glad if they could find a man that they find remotely, if they find a man they find attractive, maybe even a man they don't find attractive, but definitely have a man they find attractive who wants to support them financially, a lot of them, I would say most of them, would gladly be barefoot in the kitchen. And that's not like some sort of slavery.